one guy not goofing off is Sam Carchidi from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He has been burning up the keyboard on Inquirer.com as he covers the Flyers. First, the draft, now their prospect camp as the articles are coming fast and furious. Plus, do they have enough money left? Their salary cap space is dwindling. We'll cover that and more as we catch up with Sam here on 97.3 ESPN. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Pete, and congratulations on your show. You do a great job.
Thank you so much. We had our surprise caller last week at the end, just good old Lou from Ocean City, and then he says, hey, Pete, it's Lou Nolan from the Flyers. And it took me back for a second because, all I get in the screen is Lou, Yours would say what? Sam Winona, right? Or what's the town?
Winona, New Jersey.
Like Winona Ryder, but not spelled the same way. Right.
There you go. Yep.
So you guys have that book together. I will mention that before we go any further. If These Walls Could Talk, still out there, right?
Yeah, it still is. And Wayne Fish and I also did a book that's going to come out in November on the 50 players and events that shaped the Flyers. So that's going to come out in November, probably around November 1st. So we're excited about that. And Lou Nolan and I, we had a book out. It's still available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's called If These Walls Could Talk, and Lou Nolan just did a tremendous job. He as you know, he has more stories than anybody. He's been with the Flyers since their inception in 1967, and he's the only person that can say that. So hats off to Lou from Ocean City.
That's right. Absolutely, Sam. So, Sam, let's talk a little bit about the Flyers. And I guess first and foremost, we'll start with maybe the draft. How about we start there? Because, last week I talked with Brian Boucher about this. Chuck Fletcher kind of zigged when a lot of people wanted him to zag, or zagged when a lot of people wanted him to zig. They wanted the goal scorer in Caulfield, and instead he went with the defenseman in York.
Yeah, and it was a little puzzling at the time, to be honest with you, because as you mentioned, Caulfield was just ridiculous with his numbers last year, 70-some goals in 65 games, and probably the best pure scorer in the draft. Forget his size at 5'7". Think of Alex DeBrincat with the Chicago Blackhawks, and you probably have Cole Caulfield down the road. So people were upset about that, and I can understand that. But then when he moved up in the second round and got Bobby Brink, I keep wanting to call him Brad Brink. I don't know if you remember Brad Brink. He was a Phillies breaking a pitcher.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. But anyway, Bobby Brink was available when they moved up. He would not have been available if they did not move up in the draft. They moved up 11 spots, and he's Cole Caulfield light. I mean, this kid can score. He had 35 goals and I think 42 USHL games, and he's 5'8". He's a little guy, too. Has a good motor, a tremendous shot, tremendous accuracy. So I think a lot of people that were upset they didn't get Caulfield, they said after the second pick, hey, this guy's got a plan. So I think it really worked out, and I think they got two guys that most people had ranked as number one draft picks. If you look at Craig Button, who's highly respected, he's a draft analyst. He had Brink listed at number 20 overall. So that gives you an idea of the type of talent that they got. They got, a top-notch defenseman and also a guy who's going to be a scorer in this league. So I think he fulfilled two needs. And people say, well, why didn't you pick Caulfield in the first round, then go for a defenseman in the second round? You would not have gotten anybody, of the quality of Cam York. He's a guy, he's a puck mover. He was on that tremendous United States development program team that had 17 guys drafted.
Yeah,
if you
wow.
believe that.
Yeah.
And he was the number one defenseman there. His plus minus was just out of sight. And, I talked to Chuck Fletcher, and he thinks that one day this kid's going to run the Flyers power play. So, and they would not have gotten a defenseman of that quality if they had taken Caulfield and gone for a defenseman in the second round. So I give Chuck Fletcher props, and I think he did very well, and got some other guys in the draft too. They're probably going to help him down the road.
So, Sam, you give him a good grade on the draft. And by the way, Bobby Brink's middle name is what caught my eye first and foremost. His middle name for our listeners is what?
It's Bobby or Brink, and the funny thing is that his father debated on whether to name him. His father is a hockey nut and still is, and he debated on whether to call him Bobby Orr Brink or Bobby Clark Brink, and but he decided to go with Bobby Orr Brink, and if he becomes, of course, totally different position, but if he becomes, probably 1/10 the player of Bobby Orr, Flyers will have a great player, because to me, Bobby Orr was the greatest player of all time.
Well, maybe he did that too, because then the initials would still be Bob, right? B-O-B, right? Bobby Orr Brink.
Yeah.
B-C-B doesn't have the same ring to it. This is how my brain works, Sam.
There you go. I like it.
At least before 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday on the Pete Thompson show on 97.3 ESPN. So that's the draft, which a lot of people, it's really tough to project, guys. But you really think, and from what you've read, and like you said, Button's projections, that they got two top guys in their top two picks, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And before we go into like the prospects and who you've seen, other news popped up. They re-signed Brian Elliott. Now, I talked with Brian Boucher last week. At that point, Moose wasn't coming back yet, or we didn't know what was going to happen. Were you surprised when the Brian Elliott signing was announced?
I was a little surprised, to be honest. I thought they would go a different way, only because of Elliott's injury past. He had core muscle surgery 2 years ago, and then he had it redone, kind of a cleanup, but the next year. But he has missed a lot of time in the last 2 years, and, he's 34, going on 35, but to me his body's even older than that. He's pretty beat up. And when he's healthy, he's a solid guy. Good in the room, good leader, good quality goaltender. Not a great goaltender, but a good goaltender. He had some great years with St. Louis, but I think that was primarily because he had a great defense in front of him, and the Flyers' defense has improved. So I think his numbers will improve this year too. That said, the injury to me is cause for pause, and that's why I was surprised. I thought they would try to get a Curtis McElhinney, that type. McElhinney, for those who don't know, played a big part in the Carolina Hurricanes reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, and he's 35 years old, but a guy that can play, 20, 25 games, and I think that's what they expect. They got to play maybe 25 games and be Carter Hart's backup, but they roll the dice a little bit, and Elliott knows the players on the team. He's familiar with their intricacies and the way they work, and especially with the defense. He has a good rapport with the defense. I think that's important. So, but as I said, the only question is, can he stay healthy? And, as we saw last year in the year of 8 goalies, that is a bit of a concern with the Flyers.
17 sets of back-to-back games, Sam Carchidi writes on Inquirer.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at Broad Street Bowl. So, yeah, McElhinney was one of the names. And then, of course, that means goodbye Cam Talbot. And Chuck Fletcher said that Talbot was looking to play a little more. Initially, the spin when Talbot joined was that, he'd be a mentor to Carter Hart. Well, even mentors, I guess, want to play sometimes. But let's end with this, Sam. Then your most recent article talks about the salary cap space dwindling, and do they have enough money to add a key free agent right winger? Now, I thought for years it was always the left wing position that was the issue. Why do they need a right wing now?
Yeah, well, they need a third line left wing because Oscar Lindblom will be the left wing on that third line. He could slide to right if they needed him to, but he's a natural left winger. So the top two wingers will be Konechny and Voracek. They could flip in that order, but they definitely need a score in that third line. The third line now looks like it's going to be Oscar Lindblom on the left side, Nolan Patrick in the middle, and a mystery guy on the right. All the other lines look set. I mean, there's always a possibility somebody stars in camp, or they pick up somebody, a non-roster player, and he surprises. But to me, the one position that's open is the third line right wing, and they really don't have much cap space. If you look at the 3 restricted free agents they have to sign, Travis Konechny, Ivan Provorov is 2, and Scotty Lawton is 3. Those guys are probably going to get, conservatively about the $13 million annual cap hit. So that would probably leave a little over $3 million in cap space, like maybe 3.2, give or take a couple $100,000. And that's not going to be enough to sign, like a Justin Williams, who, who would be terrific here if they could get Justin Williams. And it's not going to be enough to sign a Gus Nyquist, who would really fit there. Probably not going to be enough to get a Brett Conley, who's available.
Right.
Michael Furlan is another guy that's available. So, there are a couple guys that, a step below that maybe they can sign. But remember, let's just say, for argument's sake, you have $3.2 million, you have to leave yourself a cushion, because if somebody gets hurt and they're not on long-term injured, you have to bring somebody up, and that's going to count against the cap. So you have to leave some space for injury call-ups and for bonuses as well. So, the 3.2 all of a sudden becomes maybe 2.5.
Right.
In actual dollars that you can spend. So he's kind of left himself in a corner, and I questioned in the story I wrote in the Inquirer this signing of Justin Braun, the trade that got Justin Braun here, because that $3.8 million, if you add that to what they have now, the 3.2, all of a sudden you have $7 million to get a third line right winger, and I in a way I can understand what Chuck Fletcher did, because the defense was so poor last year. They were 29th in the league in goals against, and that was his mission in the offseason, to rebuild the defense. But I do question it, though, because Braun, you already added Niskanen. Braun, I know he's right-handed. I know he's a solid stay-at-home guy. But, you could have had the other spot filled by either Robert Haig or Samuel Moran, and then gone for a quality right winger, which it looks like right now it's going to be really difficult to do. But, we'll see how it plays out. That's the only question I have. I think his other moves were real good. Getting Niskanen here was a terrific move. Getting Hayes signed, it was pricey and it was a long deal, but he's a solid number 2 guy. But I do question the move to get Justin Braun.
Well, I will say this, Sam. Justin Williams has a house in Ventnor if he's willing to give the Flyers the hometown discount, although they've been down that road before. Like, I think if I heard stuff correctly, Justin Williams wanted to sign with the Flyers before he signed with the Capitals. How many years ago was that, when he ended up with the Capitals and the money wasn't right or the dialogue wasn't right, and so he did not end up back with the Flyers? Plus, you also write, translation, Morgan Frost will be given a chance to make the team as a third-line right winger if they try to go internal and they can't add a right winger via free agency. We're running up against the break, Sam, but boy, I could talk Flyers hockey with you for the whole 2 hours. Maybe we'll try to work on that sometime later in the summer. We'll just have a Sam and Pete show. We'll just go the whole time.
Always good to talk to you, Pete.
Thanks, Sam.
Congratulations again.
Really appreciate it. Sam Carchidi has been our guest here on the Pete Thompson Show on 97.3 ESPN.